Earnestly podcast coming to you on February 17th, 2021. Whoa, it's been about roughly 9-10 days since the podcast. And no, I don't count Take 3 Wrestling because, that's my other show I do with my boys, Mike and Joe. We did a podcast, which we've been doing every Saturday now. We moved the show to Saturdays. But, been feeling under the weather the last couple of days. In fact, my entire family has been feeling under the weather the last couple of days. By the way, if you're on YouTube watching the show, hello again. Don't mind the white wall. I'm not in prison. I'm not in a mental institution. My wife and I are actually working on getting something behind here to decorate, whatever it may be. We're working on that, so don't get used to the white wall. That'll be gone soon. We're gonna have something behind here at some point, next couple of shows or not. As always, this podcast you can find on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and any other podcast catcher. You're sure to find this show on any of those platforms. Anyway. So I've been gone for about a couple of days. Well, 9 days, almost 10 days since I did the podcast. And typically I do 2 or 3 a week. But I've been out in the weather. My wife, myself, my youngest one, my oldest ones have been okay. And I got to tell you, we've taken more COVID tests in the last month. From the time we got COVID back in early January to last week, I think we've taken more COVID tests than probably everybody other than healthcare workers. My oldest son had gotten sick, not heavily sick, but 2 weeks ago at school, he had a little bit of fever, and as a requirement, his school said he couldn't come back to take a COVID test, so it was pretty annoying. But we do it because that's the rule, and we did it, came negative, and we returned to school. Last week, my youngest son gets hurt, First, I have a funny story. Not funny at all. But yes, I was making eggs from last Thursday, and I told him don't touch the stove. He kept going on the stool and trying to touch the stove. And I told him don't touch the stove, and I told him it was too hot. Didn't listen to me because Dad don't know what he's talking about, right? Apparently, touched the stove anyway. Burned his finger. Had a big cut. Luckily, it's better now. We're getting better, Sensei. But on top of that, he had a little bit of congestion and a head cold, so we did a virtual with the doctor, and they wanted to come see him. So they wanted us to come down and wanted to see him in person, which we did. Of course, we did that. We sent him down to the doctor, and he was fine. And they said they didn't expect it to be COVID, obviously, but just to be safe, take another test. So off went another test. All got tested again. All negative. Annoying, but we do these things because it is required to, I guess, in, these streets. So, it is what it is. So, but thank God we have COVID. I'm thankful for a lot of things. I'm thankful right now I'm not living in Texas right now. That snowstorm I'm seeing out there in Texas, oh my God. I got friends out there too. God bless you guys. Stay safe. Try to stay warm, obviously. Sad times. The snow across the country, snowstorms going through the entire country, but Florida. Imagine that, but Florida. But yeah, we don't get any snow anyway. So come on now. I don't mind getting a little bit of snow down here. Come on now. I don't want what they have, but maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit of snow. I haven't seen snow since I was a child. Since I was in New York. So anyway, also I was talking to somebody. This week, yesterday, was the first time in about a year, probably because of COVID. We haven't done much shopping in places. We do most of our shopping now curbside. But yesterday, my wife and I and our youngest, because our oldest was in school at the time, went to Costco for the first time in over a year. And I was reminded, being in Costco, just how frugal and minimalist how I've gotten over the course of the last couple of years, because we were in there and my wife is trying to get stuff for the house for the kids and, stock up on things we know we're going to use in bulk. and it makes sense. Just for the record, it makes sense. She's not wrong, but I was stubborn, man. I was stubborn. I was trying to avoid spending a certain amount of money. Even though I had the money, doesn't mean I want to spend it. I rather save the money. I got to be annoying to my wife now with this frugal thing, trying to be frugal and trying to spend wisely, because she's not a bad spender either. But it's funny because like when we first met, I was the spender of the couple. I used to be the one always spending money, and then all of a sudden, as I gotten older, I think I changed a little bit. She's got a little more daring with it, wanting to do things and spend money on things, whatever, which is fine. I still consider it low maintenance in that way, which is fine because but I become the annoying, frugal, don't spend the money if you don't need to guy. That's who I've become. And I'm in Costco, and it's hard to avoid that because anything you get is at least $10. Like, for example, my kids love Bagel Bites. It's a good value on Bagel Bites, for example. You get a pack of 70. You get 72 Bagel Bites. I think it's a pack of 8. Something like that. It's just 12, 24, 6, 4 days. So 6. Trays of Bagel Bites. My kids will eat, and they've already eaten half of it as it is in 2 days. And it's $10 or $9, whatever it was. And I'm like, oh my God, this is too much money. But then again, if you go to Publix, you go to a local store and you buy just one little box, it's about $5, $6. So the value is greater, But I'm still sitting there like, I want to spend $10, all this. It's annoying. Same with snacks too. Same with snacks also, and our bill came out to close to $300, man. I was trying to avoid that. But again, it does make sense because we had food in the house now in bulk of things where we know we're going to use. So I shouldn't be that mad about it. But, just me being annoying. So, but, we're going to make Costco's a thing again in this house after a full year. We'll probably go back next 2 weeks. Next 2 or 3 weeks, because we got kids. We got 2 boys that are getting older, and are eating me out of house and home. Granted, my oldest son is a little more pickier, but the things he does like, he's head on. My youngest son is 3 years old. He eats a lot. He's getting there. I'm gonna have a separate account just for food alone, for my kids. So, all right. So today, we were rocked by the news because shouldn't be too surprised if you follow media. Rush Limbaugh, conservative provocateur, if you will, passed away at the age of 70. Not surprised because he announced early last year, that he was in the advanced stages of lung cancer. He was ready. He was ready on, it was already a ticking clock, we want to call that, to the end of his life. He acknowledged that on air on his radio show. I don't listen to it, but I follow media. I want to say this because there's a lot of controversy around Rush Limbaugh. I was never a fan of Rush Limbaugh at all. Hated his content. Not really big in his politics. Even when I was a registered Republican, I couldn't stand him. I always found him very divisive. Put a word go. Whether or not he believed the things he said or not, the fact that he said them consistently makes you believe that he believed it. At some point, what you talk about, what you say, and who you are, and you keep repeating that's who you are. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And I caused a little bit of stir on social media to some degree because I reposted, about his death. And I basically just said simply, I hated his content and what he said. But as a pure radio talent, he was one of the greatest. Like, I put him on Mount Rushmore. If we're talking solely radio talent, he's on a Mount Rushmore. As a radio voice, just doing the job. Not about what you talk about and all that. Like, to me, personally, he was a waste of talent because I wish he used that talent for good. In other words, let's say he decided to do sports instead. He probably been my favorite radio sports radio guy. But says he chose to do conservative politics, and nothing against conservative politics, but he went an extra layer. And part of the appeal of Rush Limbaugh too was that he was the only guy doing what he did. He was the only guy doing it. You know, people say he had the biggest radio show in the world because, in the country, and that was the case because he was the only one doing what he was doing. Liberal media was fractured into like many different, fractions, you want to call it. But all I said was that he was a phenomenal radio talent. Both could be right. You could be a piece of shit and still be a phenomenal radio talent. You got people, of course, who are pissed for, obviously sad about what is passing and want people to respect what is, show some respect for and condolences or whatever. And other people, some people I'm even close to, who have nothing good to say about Rush. And look, I didn't say anything bad. I didn't sing great. I just say he was a really great radio talent. I made that clear. But I wasn't a fan of his work in terms of his content and his belief system mostly. And again, even when I was a Republican, I did not like him because I always found him to be very divisive. And he, but again, is that his fault also? Well, yeah, probably is his fault, but it also comes down to us people to, break through that. Like, we need to start thinking for ourselves. Why would we need to follow someone like him? If we know what he's saying is wrong, why do we follow that? I don't know. As a talent, he's, as I said, I even think Alex Jones, as nutty as he is, and Alex Jones is a fucking nut job. Alex Jones is a nut job. But Alex Jones on radio as a talent, he's a good talent. You can't knock it. He's a good talent. But yeah, lots of opinions on Rush Limbaugh today. And I think for me personally also too, I don't want to put myself also, that energy also with that, out there, negative energy. Because I'm at a point now in my life that, okay, fine, you hate the guy, whatever. But to me, there's no productivity in this harping on a negative over and over. That's for me anyway. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm not saying if you don't like the guy, you want to say what you want to say. I mean, free speech, obviously. But it's not in my personal best interest or this is my spirit anyway, to invest in that negative rhetoric. You'll be dealt with accordingly, I guess. If you believe in God and all that and heaven and hell and all that, he'll be dealt with accordingly, I guess, right? And I'll leave it at that. Like I said, not a Rush Limbaugh fan whatsoever. Found divisive. Although I will say one thing. He took a lot of balls from him to come on The Breakfast Club last year. I mean, he made an appearance in early last year with Charlamagne the God and that crew. A lot of people were critical of that, but again, at least he was willing to engage in dialogue. I mean, obviously, it's probably intellectually dishonest at the end of the day, but sometimes we have to engage in dialogue. It's important. I push it still. I still, but I mean, he was another bridge forward. But as a radio icon, he's on Mount Rushmore. That can't be denied. It's that simple. So there's that. Another death. I mean, probably people don't, unless you're a Christian and you follow this stuff. There was an artist let's do way back in the day when I was in church, Carmen, who had passed away today as well too, this morning or last night, whatever, age of 60 I think it was, or 65, I'm not sure. Come to think about it, he was my first concert I ever attended, major concert, back in 94, 95. This, but yeah, he passed away to a heart attack apparently. He had a lot of health issues too. Anyway, I also this past weekend watched the very I'll say popular, but the Britney Spears documentary on the New York Times, framing Britney Spears, which is focused on her current situation surrounding her conservatorship, which her father is currently the in charge of. Now, I wouldn't call myself a Britney Spears fan. I obviously know a lot of her music, if not all her music for the most part. But I would never consider myself a fan of hers. I mean, she has a couple good songs here and there. But I've always had a soft spot for her too. When she went through a lot of her issues in the late 2000s, her mental health breakdown, I actually never felt comfortable delving into that in terms of making fun of her and all that stuff. I never felt comfortable doing that just because, and mind you, back then, even 14 years ago, it's crazy. We were only 14 years now removed from that. Mental health was still not something we spoke about in the mainstream in the same way we do now. We've come a long way in a decade. We really have. The documentary, however, and you know me, I'm pretty, when it comes to documentaries, I'm always very skeptical who makes it, what's the intention, the sourcing and all that. I'm very thorough with that. But this one seems to be pretty on the up and up. And New York Times, for the most part, gets it right in a lot of ways. It was powerful. Lots came out of this, her relationship with Justin Timberlake and whatnot, and of course he apologized publicly to him and to her and Janet Jackson for his role in the Super Bowl Nipplegate thing back in 2004. Of course, apologizing to Britney for the way he treated her after the breakup in 2002. And of course, the main thing here is focusing on her conservatorship, which her father again was in charge of after her numerous breakdowns. First off, watching the documentary, I forgot. I didn't realize how much issues she had. Like, I know she had some of the things that were reported, but I didn't. They got to a point where I just stopped following her, following what she was doing, and there was a lot of things that happened that I didn't even realize what was going on. Honestly, in 2008 and whatnot, the stuff that when she went the paparazzi and was following her, and she took out her umbrella and started banging on the guy's truck and the window and damaged that. I didn't realize that went on too. A lot of stuff happened there, and you see the next 10 years where she sort of gets her life back in order. Her dad's back in her life. He's now the head of her conservatorship. Her career has a second wind. Actually, she does well. Between 2010 and 2016, 17, even had a residency in Las Vegas. So, my opinion here, because now she wants back control of her life again. Her dad's in charge of finances and all that, and that's all be litigated now through a judge now, and she's winning a little bit of cases here and there. Still not in the woods yet, but she's won. She's been able to get a bank, control her money and all that. One thing I'm going to tell you is it may not be popular with Britney fans. I'll say this anyway, even though I want her to be control of her life, obviously, and that's the best course of action. I would assume it's the best course of action because we ultimately don't know the devil in details, in the same way. We're not there, but I will say the conservatorship really did save her life because I don't know if it was good and bad intentions here of her father Jamie. If that doesn't happen, is she even still alive? Forget her career. Her career obviously flourished again for a little while after everything that happened in 2007, 2008. But who's to say she's still alive? Because based on where we learned on the story, she was on the way out. She had people around her that did not have her best interest in heart. And I'm not even talking about her dad. I'm talking about people like, was it Sam Lufty and a couple of people, handlers and stuff she had around her that were not positive people in her life. So one can argue actually that the conservatorship actually was initially a positive. It saved her life and her career. One can actually make the assumption. Ultimately, now she wants control back, which I agree with. She's 40 years old, or will be 40 years old this year. Time to control your life, right? I'm okay with that. But it's on Hulu. Framing Britney Spears. Framing Britney Spears. Let me say it clearer. It was good stuff. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. And I always, like I said, I always had a soft spot for her and Lindsay Lohan. I don't know what it is. Two people have had a lot of issues, but seem to, I don't know, I had a little bit of a soft spot for those two. Anyway, we got recently last week the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees list out. Couple surprises, couple things here, notables here. You got Mary J. Blige, Kate Bush, Devo, the Foo Fighters. They should get in. The Go-Go's, Iron Maiden. Was never an Iron Maiden fan, actually. Respect them, of course, Bruce Dickinson, those guys. But, I was never a big Iron Maiden fan. A lot of people know I like metal, but, they get surprised I say that. I'm not an Iron Maiden guy. Jay-Z, who he should get in, right? First ballot, right? Shaka Khan, how she's not in there. I know she's in there with Rufus, but she's not there as a solo artist. Carole King, that's a shock. Actually, she's not in yet. Fela Kuti, LL Cool J, no doubt should get in. LL Cool J, somebody right now about LL Cool J. Y'all people out there may be shitting on him all day. LL Cool J, this and that. He ain't Jay-Z, or he ain't Biggie, or he ain't Tupac and all that. Somebody right now about LL Cool J. LL Cool J might be the most successful rapper in history of the genre today. Think about where we were in 1986. Hip-hop was still on the way up. And this dude was mainstream as mainstream gets. Then this dude is doing TV. He has his own TV show. Then he's doing movies, and good movies too, and important roles in movies and important roles in TV shows. LL Cool J might be the most successful rapper in the history of the genre. Yes, that includes Jay-Z, that includes Biggie, that includes Tupac, Eminem, you name it. We ain't talking about record sales. We're talking about this individual success, totality, pushing the genre, pushing the game forward in ways that the other guys didn't do it. LL Cool J is probably in my opinion, the most successful of all. He should get, to be honest with you, if you ask my opinion, he should get him for Jay-Z, honestly. Just saying. You got the New York Dolls. I obviously know of them, but I didn't really listen to their music. Oh, my boys, Rage Against the Machine. These guys got to get in. They got to get in. Rage Against the Machine, one of the first rock bands I ever got into as a kid. Not officially back yet either. They're still technically broken up still. Todd Rundgren. Here's a shocker. Tina Turner. Could someone tell me how the fuck Tina Turner's not in the Hall of Fame yet? How the hell is she not in the Hall of Fame yet? I think she's in with Ike, maybe. But Tina Turner not in the Hall of Fame? That don't sound right. If she don't get in this year, there's a problem. Just saying. Because we talk about Beyonce, and Beyonce obviously is who she is. She's phenomenal. But Tina Turner was the first Beyonce. I'm just saying. And then rounding up here, Dionne Warwick. That's a little bit of a stunner too that she's not into as well. Like I said, Mary J's on that list. Also, Mary J. Blige. She probably should get in as well too. Yeah. I think we find out next couple weeks the finalists, but it's a nice little list here. Let me see what else to talk about before I get out of here. Let me see on the list here. A little cheating here because I got a little notepad here. Miami Heat, they stink. They started to get a little hot last couple weeks, and then they stunk up the joint. Can't lose to the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard. And I missed the game, but I think Paul George didn't play either. How do you lose the game and Marcus Morris is destroying you? How does that work out? That can't be, man. Nah. No more talk. Time to talk's over. Miami Heat got to win some games on this road trip. They play Golden State in about 30 minutes, which I'll be checking out in the game in a couple minutes since I got this podcast. Still got the Lakers again, I think, on this road trip too. They got work to do, man. They got work to do. But yeah, tough year. Their one saving grace though is that nobody outside Philadelphia, no one has run away with the Eastern Conference yet. Every team in the conference has hit a bump. Probably because of COVID, probably because of just the weirdness of the year, most likely. But it's go time for the Heat now, man. It's go time. You got Jimmy back. Tyler Hero had a little bit of a mishap in terms of like almost had to miss a game, but they cleared him. It's go time, man. Everybody's healthy. Let's get it going. So I got to say about that. In terms of recommendations, I've been binging WWE Network. Been binging Primetime Wrestling 1987. It's gone to 1988. It literally just passed the double referees, the double Hebners, when Hogan lost the title. Hulk Hogan lost the title to Andre the Giant. Speaking of which, Andre the Giant, I listened to a podcast on him. I've been binging recently the Something to Wrestle podcast with Bruce Pritchard. And the episode on Andre the Giant, I literally just passed a couple days ago. Phenomenal episode. By the way, if I sound weird, it's because I'm still getting over my cold. But yeah, the Andre episode was great. I listened to the Honky Tonk Man episode. I listened to, I actually re-listened to the Hulk Hogan 1988 and the 1989-90 Hogan episodes as well too. Been kind of go back into some podcasts listening to. I listened to it's actually a new Tom Brady podcast that came out recently. I think last year, and it continues through, like current days. Which is kind of fascinating because he's a Super Bowl champion, so it goes through, current status. So I've been listening to that as well too. My wife and I have been binging Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which is funny because I've seen every episode before, but I think I've watched every episode from start to finish since it was on TV back in the 90s. And obviously through the years I've watched it sporadically, but never owned the DVDs for it, and it was never available for streaming until recently. So got that going. So let me see. Anything else to talk about here? Let me see anything else on the list here before I get it going. I think that's it. Oh yeah, one more thing. Russell Wilson and his situation with the Seahawks. Look, I don't think he'll leave, obviously. He was on Dan Patrick last week, and he was talking about how he wanted some more input on front office matters. And guess what? He's right. And I think he saw Tom Brady win the title, and he realized, you know what? Might need to put a little more pressure on my front office. And I think also this also speaks also negatively of Pete Carroll. I already said in this podcast before, and I don't trust Pete Carroll much. He's gotten stale. I'm not saying he's not a bad coach, but I just think Pete Carroll's got a little stale. And I think Russell Wilson's starting to feel the pressure of that. Get a little tired of that, if you will. Do I think he'll leave Seattle? Will he be in Seattle next year? Yeah, absolutely. But Seattle better start, taking care of the boy. And at the very least, let him have some input on personnel changes. I mean, he's a quarterback. He's top 3-5 quarterback in the league. Treat him as such. Just saying. So, that's it for me. We'll probably get back on here soon. I'm going to be on Twitter, EJChristian7, Earnestly Podcast, here, of course, like I said, Earnestly Media, earnestly.net. And till next time, we will talk soon. Later.